Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. EU vows financial backing for Ukraine, holds off on frozen assets plan. Zelensky heads to London for discussions with key allies. US ramping up military pressure against drug cartels in the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean. Though Trump says declaration of war not needed, while Maduro calls for strike and insurrection over possible attack. Foreign powers to host Sudan truce meeting in Washington on Friday aim to push country's long-running war towards a permanent ceasefire and peace. Indian envoy to UN lauds Trump's role in Gaza ceasefire deal, reaffirms two-state solution as path to Israel-Palestine peace. In Andhra Pradesh, over 25 passengers charged to death and several others injured in a tragic bus mishap. President, Prime Minister condoled the loss of lives. European leaders pledged on Thursday to cover Ukraine's financial needs in 2026 and 2027, but stopped short of approving a plan that would draw from frozen Russian assets to do so after Belgium raised objections. EU leaders met in Brussels on Thursday to discuss Ukraine's pressing financial needs for the next 2 years. Many leaders had hoped the talks would clear the way for a so-called reparation loan, which in fact would use frozen Russian assets held by the Belgian financial institution Euroclear to fund a loan of 140 billion euros for Ukraine. The EU froze about 200 billion euros of Russian central bank assets after the country launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. In order to use the assets to fund Ukraine, the European Commission, the EU's executive, has floated a complex financial maneuver that involves the EU borrowing matured funds from Euroclear.
European leaders committed to ensure that Ukraine's financial needs will be covered for the next 2 years. We have asked the Commission to put forward options as soon as possible, so that Ukraine has the resources it needs to continue defending itself and fight for a just and lasting peace in 2026 and 2027 if it's necessary.
We agreed on the what, that is the reparations loan, and we have to work on the how we make it possible, what is the best option to move forward.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky heads to London for discussions with key allies. Britain on Friday called for a raft of measures against Russia to strengthen Ukraine's hand ahead of any future peace talks. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office says that he would press a meeting of the coalition of the willing countries that have pledged to strengthen support for Ukraine to take Russian oil and gas off the global market, use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine, and give Kyiv more long-range missiles. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned on Thursday that Moscow's response to any strikes deep inside Russia would be very serious and overwhelming. His remarks came a day after US President Donald Trump, who recently called Russia a paper tiger, announced the cancellation of a planned summit with Putin. The US Treasury also imposed new sanctions on 2 of Russia's largest oil companies. Addressing reports that Washington had eased restrictions on Ukraine's use of long-range Western missiles and President Zelensky's comments about developing domestic weapons with a 3,000 kilometers range, Putin said that any such moves were an attempt to escalate, warning that attacks on Russian territory would invite a powerful retaliation.
To strike on Russia, the response will be very serious. I should even say overwhelming. Let them think about it.
Despite the tensions, Putin emphasized that Moscow has always supported dialogue with Washington and still does. He said that Trump's decision to cancel the summit appeared to be a postponement rather than a complete cancellation, adding that dialogue is always better than confrontation.
The US president has decided to cancel or postpone this meeting. More likely, he is talking about postponing it. What can we say? Dialogue is always better than any confrontation.
Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the possibility of rescheduling the meeting and said that Trump wants any future talks with Putin to produce a tangible, positive outcome.
A meeting between these two leaders is not completely off the table. I think the president and the entire administration hopes that one day that can happen again, but we want to make sure that there's a tangible, positive outcome out of that meeting and that it's a good use of the president's time.
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that a report on the United States sending B-1 bombers near Venezuela to increase military pressure was false. Trump also said that his administration plans to brief the U.S. Congress on operations against drug cartels related to Venezuela, but that a declaration of war is not needed.
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay, we're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro issued a warning on Thursday, ordering the country's working class to launch a general insurrectionary strike and take up arms if the United States attempts any intervention in Venezuela. Speaking at an event in Caracas, Maduro declared that workers, peasants and fishermen would serve as the greatest shield the country has against foreign operation.
If one day they dare to come here or there, here is the greatest shield the country has, the working class. Not a pin would move, and a general insurrectionary, revolutionary strike by the working class and peasant would be declared in the streets until power was regained to carry out an even more radical revolution. Brothers and sisters, take this as an order. The order is given. If they dare, not a pin will move in this country. They would see the parade of millions of men and women with rifles in the fighting forces of the working class, the peasants, the fishermen, and the neighborhoods throughout the country.
Venezuela began a nationwide military deployment on Thursday as part of its Coast Independence 200 exercises aimed at defending the country's sovereignty and internal stability amid rising regional tensions. The drills, which span across the coastal states of La Guaira, Miranda, Azo Antegui, Falcon, Nueva Esparta, Carabobo, Sucre, and Zulia, were launched under the supervision of Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez, who also serves as the Vice President for Defense and Sovereignty. During the deployment, Pedrino warned against alleged covert operations by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, saying any attempt to destabilize Venezuela would fail. He added that the military exercises are also part of a response to military threat in the Caribbean region. Representatives of the United States, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt will meet on Friday in Washington with the sides in Sudan's long-running conflict to push them towards a truce. Last month, the influential foreign powers, referred to as the Quad, jointly called for a humanitarian truce in Sudan, followed by a permanent ceasefire and a transition towards civilian rule. This week's meeting is focused on that plan and pressing the warring parties to implement a 3-month nationwide humanitarian truce. The Quad is acting collectively to apply unified pressure on the parties to stop the fighting and allow aid to reach the civilians. The officials said members of the grouping would meet with the two sides separately. Sudan's army-aligned government reacted coolly to the Quad's peace plan last month, rejecting the suggestion that both it and the RSF be excluded from the country's post-war political transition. You're watching DD India Live. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, final candidate list released for Bihar Assembly elections Phase 2.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative, from current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order. DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India. India's voice to the world.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live. The United Nations Day is being celebrated today. It marks the founding of the United Nations 8 years ago with the UN Charter, signed by major signatories and 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council on 26th of June 1945 and coming into force on the 24th of October in 1945. October 24th marks United Nations Day, commemorating the founding of an organization that continues to symbolize hope, unity, and the shared aspirations of humanity. Since its inception in 1945, the United Nations has served as a platform for nations to resolve conflicts, foster development, and uphold peace. Throughout this journey, India has remained one of its most steadfast partners, contributing both in spirit and in action. India stands among the top contributors to UN peacekeeping, with over 5,000 personnel serving across continents. From maintaining ceasefire to delivering humanitarian aid, Indian peacekeepers have earned a reputation for courage, discipline, and compassion.
Our soldiers ensure peacekeeping, our sailors protect maritime shipping, our security counters terrorism, our doctors and teachers facilitate human development the world over, our industry produces affordable products, our techies promote digitization, and our training facilities are open to the world. These remain the core of our foreign policy.
However, the question of reform of the United Nations and its Security Council has come up at a time when the world grapples with multiple conflicts. Speaking at the 80th UN General Assembly this year, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar posed a question that resonated deeply across the global stage.
We must ask ourselves today, how has the UN lived up to expectations? And just look at the state of the world.
As the UN celebrates 8 decades of existence, its relevance rests not only in reflection but in renewal. Bureau Report, DD India. India at the United Nations on Thursday called US President Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire deal a landmark initiative and emphasized that the talks must continue for the agreement to hold. Indian envoy to the UN, P. Harish, also commended the role of Egypt and Qatar towards achieving the deal. He remained firm in its view that dialogue and diplomacy and the two-state solution are the means to achieve peace in the entire Middle East.
We welcome the signing of the landmark peace agreement. It is India's hope that the positive diplomatic momentum that has been generated would lead to lasting peace in the region. At this juncture, India would also like to place on record its appreciation for the United States and especially President Donald Trump for playing an instrumental role in forging the agreement. Further, India also commends the role of Egypt and Qatar towards achieving this end. India remains firm in the view that dialogue and diplomacy and the two-state solution are the means to achieve peace. India's position is firmly rooted in its consistent stance on the developments in 7th October 2023, as well as the overall Palestinian question. India has clearly condemned terrorism, stressed that there must be an end to destruction, despair, and suffering of civilians, and sought the immediate release of all hostages.
He further stated that over the last 2 years, India has provided relief assistance of nearly 135 metric tons of medicines and supplies to Palestine.
Another central element is economic prospects and viability of a Palestinian state. Aid is essential in the short term for rehabilitation and reconstruction. Palestinian people cannot rebuild their lives without the support of the international community. India has been active on this front. The total support by India to the Palestinian people is to the tune of over $170 million, which includes projects worth $40 million in various stages of implementation. Our commitment manifests in various forms depending upon the needs and priorities of the Palestinian people. We have implemented human-centric projects bilaterally and also partnered with the United Nations and the Palestinian Authority in this regard. Over the last 2 years alone, India has provided relief assistance of nearly 135 metric tons of medicines and supplies. Looking ahead, these initiatives must be coupled with the creation of economic frameworks and mechanisms that are conducive for social development, investment, and employment.
Speaking on the Middle East situation, the envoy said that the humanitarian challenges are an important dimension and it is important to address these on priority.
Indian troops in Andorf remain steadfast in executing their mandate even during extreme challenges experienced during the recent conflict, including the supreme sacrifice by Acting Force Commander Brigadier General Amitabh Jha in December 2024. India is the third largest contributor to this mission. As the second largest contributor to UNIFIL, India reiterates the importance of the safety and security of peacekeepers of this mission. At a broader level, peacekeepers serve a very critical function of the UN, and they cannot become casualties of conflicts and escalations. India remains hopeful that the Lebanese armed forces would be equipped to discharge the entire spectrum of its responsibilities once the UNIFIL sunset clause becomes operational towards the end of 2026.
Speaking on India's role in peacekeeping in Yemen, he said that the humanitarian situation in Yemen is an area of concern and must be considered above politics.
The humanitarian situation in Yemen is an area of concern. Humanitarian assistance must be above politics. It must reach all civilians, irrespective of affiliations and power structures. Immediate cessation of hostilities would catalyze these efforts. Safety and security of Indian nationals in Yemen are a priority for us.
Marking a milestone in India-Germany engagement as 2025 commemorates the 25th anniversary of India-Germany strategic partnership, Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, who was on an official visit to Berlin, met the CEO of Mercedes-Benz Group, Ola Källenius. Now, both discussed the company's operations in India and their plans for expansion as they are working towards fostering greater innovation and sustainable growth in the Indian automotive industry. The minister also held a meeting with the CEO of Infineon Technologies, AG Jochen Hanbeck. They exchanged views on potential opportunities for collaboration in semiconductors and decarbonization initiatives. The leader also met CEO of Vehicle Mobility Solutions Division, Michael Mazur, discussed opportunities for greater investment in India's defense sector, as well as new avenues for collaboration in engineering solutions, digitization and intelligence. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, who is on an official visit to Germany from October 23rd to hold important meetings designed to facilitate high-impact interactions with senior government officials, industry leaders and business associations in both the countries to further boost the Indo-German relations. On the sidelines of his Berlin visit, the minister spoke to DD India correspondent Sonika Raina on the ongoing India-US trade talks. Let's listen in.
So would you like to tell us something about the ongoing US-India trade negotiations?
We are in dialogue with the United States of America. Our teams are engaged. We recently had the Commerce Secretary visit the US and he met with his counterparts. We continue to engage with them and talks are progressing. We hope to work towards a fair and equitable agreement in the near future.
The Delhi Police Special Cell has achieved a major breakthrough, busting an ISIS terror module in a high-level operation. 2 suspected terrorists have been arrested, one from Delhi and another from Madhya Pradesh. Both were reportedly undergoing training for Fidayeen attacks and were planning a major strike in the capital. In Andhra Pradesh, over 25 passengers were reportedly charged to death and several others were injured when a luxury private bus travelling from Hyderabad to Bengaluru caught fire in Kurnool district early on Friday. The private sleeper coach was carrying around 40 passengers when it caught fire after colliding with a motorbike in the opposite direction around 3:30 a.m. According to the police, both the driver and the bus cleaner went missing immediately after the mishap. President expressed grief over the loss of lives in a tragic bus incident. In a post on X, she wrote, and I quote, "The loss of lives in a tragic bus fire accident in Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh is deeply unfortunate. I extend my heartfelt condolences to the bereaved family members and pray for the speedy recovery of those injured." In a post on social media platform X, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote, and I quote him, "Extremely saddened by the loss of lives due to a mishap in Kurnool district of Andhra Pradesh. My thoughts are with the affected people and their families during this difficult time. Praying for the speedy recovery of the injured. An ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees from Prime Minister's National Relief Fund would be given to the next of the kin of each deceased. The injured would be given 50,000 rupees. Union Home Minister Amit Shah extended greetings to the ITBP personnel on Raising Day. Home Minister praised the Himveers of the ITBP for safeguarding India's borders in some of the most unforgiving climates and terrains. He highlighted their courage, commitment and role they play in securing the nation's dignity. On Raising Day, Home Minister also remembered the sacrifices of the martyrs whose dedication continue to inspire the country. He called the ITBP a symbol of valor, discipline and unwavering service to the nation. Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh attended the exercise Thar Shakti at the Longewala border in Jaisalmer, Rajasthan on Friday. During his visit, the minister interacted with soldiers and joined them for the traditional Bada Khana dinner, sharing moments of army personnel and appreciation. He also offered prayers at the revered Tanot Mata temple, known for its deep spiritual significance among army personnel stationed in the region. Advertising legend Piyush Pandey passed away on Friday at the age of 70. His last rites will be performed at Shivaji Park in Mumbai. Pandey served as the Chief Creative Officer worldwide and Executive Chairman India at Ogilvy. He made history as the first Asian to preside over the jury at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity. His pioneer contributions were recognized with the Clio Lifetime Achievement Award in 2012 and the Padma Shri, making him the first individual from Indian advertising to receive the prestigious national honor. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed deep sorrow over the passing of advertising legend Piyush Pandey. He praised Pandey's creativity and his monumental contribution to the world of advertising and communication. Expressing condolences in his X account, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "My thoughts are with his family. Shri Piyush Pandey was admired for his creativity. He made a monumental contribution to the world of advertising and communications. I will fondly cherish our interaction over the years, saddened by his passing away." Union Ministers Piyush Goyal, Nirmala Sitharaman, along with former Minister Anurag Thakur, paid tribute to the advertising icon. The final list of candidates for the second phase of the Bihar Assembly Elections 2025 has been released after the last date for withdrawal of nominations ended on October 23rd. A total of 122 assembly constituencies across 20 districts are included in this phase. Voting for the second phase will take place on November 11th. In Bangladesh, the Jatiya Party has criticized the interim government's neutrality and demanded a caretaker-style setup ahead of the general election. JP Chairman GM Qadir said that the current administration cannot ensure fair polls and must be replaced. Other JP leaders warned that they won't join the election process unless reforms are made. The party also rejected calls for a referendum before a new parliament is elected. This echoes similar demands from the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which earlier urged the government to operate in a neutral mode. The FBI carried out investigations into schemes involving illegal sport betting and rigged poker games, leading to the arrest of 34 people. NBA Hall of Fame player Chauncey Billups and a guard with the Miami Heat, Terry Rozier, were among the people charged in connection with two separate but related federal gambling investigations. The schemes, one of them focused on insider sports betting and another that rigged poker games nationwide, spanned years and involved tens of millions of dollars in illicit gains from the wire fraud, money laundering, extortion and gambling. That scheme also involved the Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese and Genovese, that is the organized crime families in New York. While the arrests stemmed from the separate indictments, a handful of defendants were charged in both the cases. With that, we end this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.